Hi, legal besties. Welcome to Ladies in Law podcast. My name is Allison Melendez.
And I'm Mikaela.
And today's episode is going to be about our why. Why did we decide to create a podcast?
Yeah. So I think a big part of what we want this podcast to be is curating a really authentic network, talking about the plights of being a woman attorney or woman in any kind of field that's male dominated, and also just kind of making the law digestible and understandable to people in a way that kind of makes it exciting.
Makes it exciting, makes it fun. I think our profession's known to be, it's a very boring type old profession.
The legal jargon.
Yes. Lots of acronyms and lots of just terms that get thrown around a lot. And so I think one of the goals that we hope to do throughout this podcast is explain concepts that come up when you are facing a situation, a legal situation, and just make it fun and understandable.
Yeah. And I think what's important too is like this podcast, while we will talk about a lot of legal processes and the like, I think it's also one of those things where like you can kind of find something to relate to in every bit of our episode, even if it is talking sometimes about the legal field, whether it's something that like you are interested in, whether it's something that like you think might impact someone in your life. Like just having like a knowledge bank of a different kind of field is also important too.
Absolutely. I think another reason, you touched on it a little bit earlier, we wanted to create this space is just to create a community. Sometimes we were lucky enough, so Mikaela and I worked together, and we were lucky enough to create a community and a very quick friendship when we started working together, and we constantly come to each other for support, for guidance, to vent. And having someone, we're so lucky to have each other, but that's not always the case for everybody. And so we want to create a space for the listeners to reach out to us and to reach out to other people that listen and just build this community of support. Obviously, we work in the legal industry, but as you mentioned, it can be individuals outside of the legal profession as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think community is so incredibly important. Like at the end of the day, you want to just kind of be validated in being human. And that's hard to do when you feel isolated within any field and within any walk of life. You know, it's really nice to have friends in different kind of like chapters or different like reasons, like you have that friend that you can just like sit and do nothing with. You have that friend you get food with. Like you have that friend that like just intrinsically understands. And like you are that for me in so many ways where it's like, I can say something and you just like, you get it,
Same. And I think that's what's been so nice throughout our experience working together. It's, obviously we're coming across issues that maybe one of us hasn't seen, but the other has. And if neither of us have seen an issue, we have a community that we can reach out to and ask for support. And I think sometimes just having the validation of like, I am feeling X way and I just like, am I crazy? Or do you also feel this way? I think it goes so far.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think for everyone listening, like we have a lot of different like social media platforms that we actively engage in. And so we each have our own attorney page.
Yeah. My page is attorney.Allison Melendez.
And mine is Mikaela the Lawyer, Mikaela.
Lots of spelling variation.
Lots. And then we also have one for our podcast.
It's a Ladies in Law podcast. And we check all of the different Instagram accounts. Hopefully, we're hoping to have a TikTok soon. That's in the works. But please, if anyone's is listening, please reach out on any of those platforms. And like I said, we'd love to create this community and engage with people and just meet all kinds of people. We just would love that for our program. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about today is kind of our experience creating this podcast. So Mikaela, I know that you kind of touched on creating an authentic community and an authentic network. What do you see this podcast being in relation to like creating a network?
Yeah, I think for me, like I know personally, like I love listening to podcasts, and a lot of like the podcasts I listen to, like I'll join like their Facebook group, and you kind of just get this community of people that kind of all like are listening or are from all these different walks of life. Like I would love for this podcast to become something where like we just have like this community of really uplifting individuals, where we share experiences, we share templates, we share just like the plight of like existence. That's But you know what I mean? Where it's just like where you come together and you just like have shared experiences. And a big part of that in terms of like, I can speak because we're in the legal field. I'll use that as like an example. But I think for us, like creating, you know, authentic relationships can be so difficult when people are trying to get referrals or you're trying to kind of just like constantly advance.
Get business.
Yes, exactly. Where it's like, well, I want to do that in a way that's like authentic to me. And I know that you share that as well.
Absolutely. And I think for me, it comes down to relationships and friendships. And I think there's this rule of reciprocity where like, if you do favors, naturally people want to do favors in return. So I think for me, at least, it's always been doing things without any expectation in return and just doing things to be a nice person, whether that's, like you said, sharing templates, sharing information about a specific topic that we've come across, or even just being a sounding board. I know sometimes there's law students that see younger attorneys and they're like, I would love to know what you did, or I feel a little bit more comfortable talking to you because you're a little bit closer in age. And I love that. I love when people reach out and feel like they can just speak to me like a normal human being, and it's not like, sir, madam, like, please don't say that. Ms. Melendez.
No, I get that, because I feel like at the end of the day, like, we're just humans, and like, you want to just like have that kind of connection where it feels like you. And so I think that that's something that a lot of the times can get lost in translation, where you kind of just like go through the motions and you forget to really listen. Or like I know that you and I always talk about like, we want to have like real conversations. We want to get to know the individual. Like, we pride ourselves on being so much more than our profession.
Absolutely. And I think for the upcoming episodes, we're going to be covering all kinds of topics, including how to network and not make it scary. We're going to go over what else?
Yeah, a lot of like the way that we've kind of filmed our podcasts and the way that we have it worked out is that we're going to kind of go through the timeline procedurally of a case. And within each episode, we kind of talk about like the grander scheme of like it within life, and then the life of a case, and if you've been wronged in any kind of way, what your rights are. And so we'll talk about the inception of a case kind of to trial. And then throughout that, we talk about like how to curate a authentic network for you. We talk about what it's like to be a woman in a male-dominated field, and kind of talk about how you can really overcome that in a way that feels really like still you.
Yeah, and I think just acknowledging that we've come a long way. Obviously, there's a lot of female attorneys now, and I'm so grateful for that, because there are the titans that came before us, and you know, there's been great episodes out there, and we just want to continue building off of all of those experiences and acknowledge that there is still room for growth. But at the same time, like, we are building this network, and we just want to make sure there's listeners out there that feel validated in their feelings.
Yeah. I think that's like going to be a theme pretty much through like every one of our episodes. It's like, do whatever feels like authentic to you.
Yes.
And so I think there are going to be all of these like pieces of advice that you get from like all different people that works for them. And it's awesome that it works for them, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And so I think having that kind of grace with yourself, where it's like, it's going to be trial and error. You're going to have to try some things out, and it might feel uncomfortable because it's new, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. But maybe it's not like you. And so then you're kind of, you know, trial and error, go through the motions, but also just like make those notes, like those mental checklists of like, did that feel good? Like, did that feel like me? Is that the person I want to grow to be? Because that's important too.
Yeah.
You know, like you can always push yourself in that direction, but you also don't want to lose yourself while doing it.
And I think that ties into another theme of the podcast. It's growth and empowerment, and figuring out what works best for you, but also shifting your mindset and not, you know, focusing on all the negative things that we do experience as female attorneys, unfortunately, but shifting your mindset and using that as a tool of empowerment.
Absolutely.
And we're also here to just have a really good time.
We really do love just hanging out.
So that concludes our first episode. Please tune in. We'll be releasing episodes every other week on Thursdays. And like I mentioned, we're going to be covering a host of topics. And we would also like viewers and listeners to reach out to us if there's a specific topic that you'd like us to cover, or something that you'd like us to kind of unpack, maybe a legal term or whatever it may be, we'd love to get feedback from the audience. And we're going to be available on several platforms.
Absolutely.
All the platforms. Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube. All of them.
Wherever you can find a podcast, you will find this podcast. And I think also like we really do want to curate like a good network of just uplifting people. And so if that speaks to you.
And in addition to that, we will also be hosting events. So we recently had a tennis fit event. We're hosting another one coming up, but just keep an eye out on our Instagram. We'll be posting all kinds of events to bring people together. If you're local, if not, then we can definitely coordinate other things. But I think that's also a big portion of this is expanding the community we build and doing fun little events.
Yeah, we really do love meeting up in people. That is not. We really love meeting up in person. And then like next episode, we're going to go in a little bit about like who we are, what kind of field of law we're in, and kind of just like do a little about me, about us.
A little fun interview. Yeah. So stay tuned for the next episode, and we look forward to hearing from our viewers. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.